I'm here to help women reset and rewild, to embrace and prioritize the pauses in order to reclaim their peace and power. I'm Dr. Michelle Peris, director of the Poppy Clinic and founder and CEO of the Wild Collective. As a disruptor, naturopathic doctor, wife, and mama, I've created a global movement and sacred space for women to rise together. Here, you'll break through limitations, romanticize your life, and unlock the magic of your divine feminine power. My life's work is rooted in community, lifting women into their most powerful, authentic selves, while empowering clinicians to elevate their practices with a transformational, community-driven model. I lead a thriving, passion-fueled business and naturopathic practice brimming with abundance, where I can guide women to invigorate their lives through sisterhood and elevate healthcare with a cutting-edge transformational approach. I've witnessed firsthand in my practice how this model sparks consistent health transformation, creates flourishing communities, and brings profitable success. You can have it all, a life filled with abundance, contagious joy, and untethered potential. So pull up a seat. It's time to pour into yourself and tap into your intuition and design a life that's wild, free, and uniquely yours. And I'm going to show you how. This is Wild Medicine. All right, welcome back to another episode of Wild Medicine. I am your host, Dr. Michelle Peris, and it's been a few weeks. I've had scheduling conflicts, to be honest, and it's been near impossible to find time to schedule in podcasting, so I apologize. I'm back. I'm not going anywhere, but also I am recording and I'm squeezing it in today because I feel compelled to bring something up. So I think you're getting the best version of me in this podcast when I'm just hitting record when inspiration hits. Here's the thing. I'm recording today. It's going to sound maybe a bit raw, maybe all over the place, but there's intention and purpose behind this episode. And hopefully it's in massive service to you and the journey you're on. You know, I am honored to share space, sit in communion with like-minded individuals who are on a growth trajectory, who are continuously holding themselves to standard sounds wrong with what I'm trying to really translate, but with a level of fervor of growth, this, continuous journey of expansion. I think our soul's calling is to expand and to understand more every day as things unfold. And what's been really interesting for me is what is coming up. And so I thought this might be helpful. Actually, I shared it with a couple of patients and women in Wild Collective, and they were like, when you're ready, you should share this on the podcast. And I'm sure the story will evolve and expand as I garner more understanding, but I did feel like there was purpose behind my current level of sharing that might be beneficial for anyone who listens. So I had an experience this week that brought up all kinds of emotions that I was not expecting to have. I actually did a photo shoot, which I was really excited about. I was looking forward to for a really long time. Haven't done something like that in a really long time. With the work that I do, I feel like it lends well to have photos for social media, for websites, design. It's part of my marketing business. So it's always been something that I've done. And I think there is value to any woman who feels a pull, a nudge, to do something like that for herself. If that is something that could help her sit with parts of herself that have maybe not been allowed to be exposed or seen, expressions of beauty, expressions of creativity, expressions of personality, all of the things. Photography provides this opportunity for that to flourish and be seen. And so what I was used to being like a regular brand shoot ended up bringing up feelings for me that I was really surprised by. And I think it has a lot to do with a number of things. I've been on a pretty disciplined healing journey for the last 4 years, to which I've talked a lot about because it's the reason I ended up back in clinical practice, helping support other women in the reset metabolic health space and shedding what no longer serves them. I am a recipient, a receiver of the benefit of that. And that's why I find myself leading that experience for others who are are ready to really step into that next iteration, to really truly shed what no longer serves them, to reclaim a level of health that I think is not otherwise possible. And that's because of the lens I speak at. That's just how I am of service, and that will work who it works for, and it will not serve those who it does not work for. And all of that is okay. But yes, I've been on this healing journey with my own physical body and mental well-being and physique and body composition. And I, just turned 44, and I'll probably do an episode on that. But I find myself to be in the best shape of my life. And I was really excited to do a photo shoot because I was really proud of, the health that I had reclaimed and the physique that I had built, that had taken actually 4 years to really shift my body composition into where it is today. What ended up happening is feeling deeply triggered and highly emotional at the pictures that I saw. So even though the experience was incredibly empowering and really fun, like super fun to do, the feelings I was left with on the other side were really surprising to me. Feelings of guilt and shame and embarrassment, and like, who are you to show up like that? And it was really interesting. This comes from, it's rooted in a lifetime of, I think, of having stuff with my physical appearance and maybe not being fully comfortable with it. And it comes from hearing other women put other women down for putting themselves out there in that way, and being surprised at the vitriol that can happen. And I was just like flooded with emotion. Like, I'm telling you, I was floored. I did not expect to feel that. I started sharing with girlfriends and patients and women in my community, the Wild Collective. And it was just super interesting to hear what was coming up for them and to like really unpack that. And so I just wanted to share the wisdom, because I imagine it might not be photography for you that brings up these feelings, but something along the way will initiate probably very similar feelings. And I want us to have a guidebook. Like, what do you do when you are triggered, when you find yourself flooded with unexpected emotions? And how do we truly, because if you've listened to this podcast for a while, it's way more about sitting with what is coming up and fully alchemizing and feeling into that experience versus avoiding and suppressing and protecting it from ever being felt. This episode is brought to you by the Wild Collective. If you are ready for something innovative, something truly transformational, you are wanting to build a beautiful life and thriving health and vibrant energy, and you're not sure how to build that in, you might want to consider something as incredible as the Wild Collective. The Wild Collective is our women's health initiative. It is a closed community of like-minded individuals. It is where sisterhood meets self-care. There's 10 modules of fundamental women's health, all the evidence-based information that you need, the testing, the handouts, the assessment, how to advocate for yourself in the wellness space. Also, what natural and integrative approaches you can consider for any age and stage in life. And being that it is part of a community, you also get this beautiful experience of meaningful connection, conversations that matter, and truly up-leveling your life. So if you are ready to take on something totally transformative and fun, then please go check us out at the Wild Collective. So that's the-wild-collective.com. Get on the wait list, and we will see you in one of our Wild Circles very soon. So that leaves me to want to share 2 tools, but also share some wisdom. I've done a lot of work around this concept of the divine feminine. I've done a lot of work around female friendships. I've done a lot of work around criticism and compassion when it comes to, walking this path. And, we can say things a lot and they have intellectual or cerebral meaning, but for us to actually embody these concepts is an entirely different, much more complex undertaking. And one of the quotes I really enjoy is from Kelly Brogan, which is, if we could, as women, stop deciding that we knew what was best for other women, we would be free. And if you find yourself being judgmental of others and triggered, that is really an invitation for you to look at what that is for you. And that is what was mirrored to me by my friend. She was like, I get that this is coming up for you. And she said, I want to know where this is coming from your childhood, because I can't believe that this is coming up for you. And she loves me. And then she said, but you have to remember, other people's triggers are their own. So if they are judging, if they are triggered by you, that is their thing. It is none of your business. And that is true. I'd say I live by that quote of that, like, other people's opinion of us is none of our business. And yes, intellectually, I understand that. And in many respects, I can hold that without feeling much of anything other than that feels like coherence for me. But every once in a while, new level, new devil, we meet parts of ourselves that still need healing. And I find myself deeply triggered at the idea of people judging me. And it had to do with this photography shoot, and it had to do with seeing a part of myself or an expressed version of myself that maybe I have not met yet and feel terrified by. And so when these triggers come up, I just want to invite in a different opportunity, a different level of questioning. So there is a book called Loving What Is, and it's written by Byron Katie, and she asks, I think, some really profound questions. So she has 4 questions so that you can ask yourself and then really contemplate what is coming up. Because the problem with triggers, the problem with being in a state of, nervous system overdrive or fight or flight is that we don't have really great discernment. So when something comes up and we feel engaged, triggered, and we get heightened, we have difficulty having perspective. And this is where community is vitally important, because sometimes discernment comes through the collective sharing and the collective wisdom, not from our internal environment. Because if you hold beliefs similar to what I've learned from Joe Dispenza, your personal reality creates your personality. You might tell yourself lies, like the internal environment may not have great discernment, because if your past experiences shape how you see the world, you might not be the best judge of what's coming up for you. And so we need community. We need like-minded individuals to have these kind of conversations with, to garner discernment sometimes. So thankfully, I have a great community of women that I trust wholeheartedly with this information. Like, this sounds ridiculous, but I'm triggered by my own photo shoot, but that it's true for me. That is what is coming up. Okay, so let's talk about these 4 questions. Next time you find yourself engaged, heightened, emotionally reactive to something, you want to ask yourself these 4 questions. This has been a game changer for me. And I learned these questions a long time ago, but they didn't land the way they did for me last year. The first question is it true? And if you're heightened, the first response is likely, yes, this is true. It's real for me. This is happening in the lifetime. Now, is it true? You can scan for any kind of evidence. If your personality is your personal reality, you're always going to scan, you're going to find ways to make it true. Okay. So at your very first level, you're like, yes, this is true. I should feel embarrassed, shamed, afraid to be seen, exposed, all of the things. The second question is, can you absolutely know that it is true? Or how it was summarized to me last year, is it actually true? So is it true? Is it actually true? So this changed everything for me, because your nervous system will tell you how it is true. Your nervous system, your personal experiences, your bias, your subconscious mind, and very primal thinking will scan for evidence that whatever you're reacting to is in fact true. Is it actually true is a very different question. Asked in that sequence is a very different question and is likely to elicit a very different response. Is it actually true? Now creates some breathing room between your initial reaction and reality. Is it actually true for me? No. First of all, I haven't done anything yet, and I'm having this whole story being told that is created, like nothing has happened yet. And so I have no evidence for, just because things have been a certain way in the past, that is in any way true now. It's not absolutely true. In fact, people might be very positive or celebratory. Like there's so many things that are actually possible that I have not yet looked at. And so for me, those 2 questions are absolutely life-changing, because your patterns, your personal reality will have you answer question number one is, yes, this is absolutely true. Get scared, get engaged, get ignited. This is something to be feared. It is scary. It is not safe. Is it absolutely true? Is often you're like, well, no, nothing has happened. All I did was, take some photos. I had a great day. It was fun. It was empowering. Other people's triggers are not mine. And I don't even know if they'll be triggered. And my triggers are, just a part of my past. And it can be there, but it doesn't mean that is what is actually happening. There's a really good example of this that I was shared with from Liz Gilbert. I went to an event last year and she'd written a book, and the nature of the story is not that important, but basically the nature of the book was triggering to a population of people. And what she could see happening online is they were trying to cancel her and the book and all of the things. And so her initial response is it true that I'm being canceled? It's like, well, yeah, look what's happening online. And then the next question was, well, and she felt attacked. Is it absolutely true? And so the next question, when she answered that, she was like, well, I'm in my hotel room in my robe. I've just been served breakfast on a silver platter. No, I'm not being attacked. I'm safe. I live in a part of the world that is very safe. And the content of this book was particularly triggering to people who were actually undergoing a war and were actually being harmed. And so when she sat with the reality of that, she was like, it was like a no-brainer. She knew exactly how to act, because had she let that first, is it true, lead the way, she would be making it about herself and her nervous system scanning for danger and what she could experience in the online space versus what was her actual reality. The actual reality for me is that I've spent the last 4 years working super hard at regulating my nervous system, at healing my body. And the visuals that I see of that are just the byproduct of that effort, of that discipline, of that self-love and that self-worth. It is okay that not everybody is okay with that. I don't need them to be okay, because I'm okay. And that's why in the moment it was such an empowering experience. And that was this beautiful celebration of that moment. And it's okay if not everybody understands and gets that. That doesn't mean anything about my self-worth or anything, right? So that's a really helpful pathway to greater discernment when our nervous system is heightened. Question number 3, how do you react when you think that thought? So what happens? What's the emotional response to the initial thought and even to the second question, right? The emotional reaction that we have is really what perpetuates our entire response to the situation. And I recently read this quote that really helped me understand my burnout better, because my burnout was perplexing to me, not by looking at my level of work intensity. I'm a very hard worker. I've known that my whole life. Adulthood, let's say. But I've known that for a very long time. The confusing part for me with burnout is that I was doing all these things that I really loved and wanted to be doing. And I read this new definition that burnout is simply your ambition overriding your nervous system. That makes a lot of sense to me. So when our emotional state overrides the facts, it's really hard for us to have discernment. And so if you're reacting strongly to either the first or second question or both, you can see how we start to weave a whole story. There was something that happened a few months back that required me to follow up with an individual and have a conversation, an honest conversation. And I remember actually after solving the problem, I was left with all of these spiral feelings because, for me, for a very long time, that first question, is it true? I stopped there. I was just like, yeah, it's true. So it's taken years to untether from that because it's not really true. And so I caught myself in this recent situation where I had resolved a problem, and I was super proud with how we handled and navigated and spoke really honestly and with the utmost of integrity with each other. But my mind kept spinning a story, and I had to actually stop the emotional response that I was having to it because the truth was that, what was the truth? Everything I was having an emotional reaction to was post resolution of the problem, meaning that this is a really strongly flexed muscle in my nervous system to just keep perpetuating how bad and wrong I am, which is probably what put me on the path of burnout, because it's always like push harder, do more, because the fear of sitting with the feelings of unrest, right? So how do you react? So that initial question, you might be like, well, I'm reacting really strongly. I'm really judging myself. I'm worried about other people judging me. I'm afraid. I feel ashamed. I feel guilt, all the things. When you think about if it's absolutely not true, well, then there might be some calm. There might be some peace with that. There might be some perspective with that. But we want to get intimately, connected to our emotional state. And we want to alchemize, like we want to sit with and expand and let those feelings be there without judgment, because it's going to be really important. The better mover or driver in healing is to actually feel, and that is can be terrifying for a lot of us. Are you feeling burnt out and exhausted? See you in someone who has recovered from a few burnouts herself. And through sitting in circles with women over the last 8 years, I have some perspectives as to what personality traits and habits and thinking traps perpetuate and put us at higher risk of developing and ending up in burnout. So if you want to find out your burnout archetype quiz, are you a CEO? Are you a saboteur, a martyr, a rescuer, or a zombie? Then head over to the show notes, click the free quiz, and find out what might be getting in your way. Also, learn strategies and things to consider to help you reclaim your energy and recover from burnout so that you can be blissed out in the world and doing things that make you happy. Enjoy. And then question number 4, who would you be without that thought? Who would you be? What if you just didn't worry about it? What if when these things popped up, you just were the observer? Who would you be? Would you be someone who proudly, did the thing that you wanted to do, and the observer or witness of the result of that, and just celebrate and just enjoy and just relish in the experience, versus weaving a whole story and getting incredibly tethered to the emotional distress of weaving the story? Like, you would be free, right? It would create a whole level of freedom. I wanted to bring the 4 questions to the forefront because no matter what your situation is, no matter where you're getting stuck, these questions can be used anywhere. And they're really helpful, especially the first 2. The last 2 are great too, but especially the first 2. Is it true? And is it actually true? The level of curiosity and honesty that requires is essential for having perspective. Perspective is, everything. The shift in perception is the miracle. When you start to see things differently, you are free. And I want us to feel more peaceful collectively, and not so hard on ourselves, and not so critical of each other, and also not so critical of ourselves, and not worrying about the potential judgment of others. People are going to judge you, whether you do or do not. I was saying, I was at a funeral recently, and it was interesting because I was like, here I am, worried about what everyone's thinking or saying about me, when at the end of the day, those people are not showing up for your funeral. And it's entirely possible loved ones aren't even showing up. So why are we playing small? Who are you doing that for? Who is it benefiting? And will you regret it? Right? Now, the last thing I want to tie this to, and I think this is what was so triggering for me, and a patient brought this to my attention, and I was like, so kudos to her, because we all walk a similar path. We all can be really hard on ourselves. And what's really interesting about all the work that I do is, when we are ascending, expanding to the highest expression of ourselves, when we are shedding what no longer serves us, when we are stepping into that version, I think what a lot of us learn is that we meet our own glass ceilings of what is permissible and what is not permissible. And when we violate those things, when we start to step beyond or shatter the glass ceiling, we start to feel big levels of emotions, and we need to sit with that. And what I have discovered in this situation, and what others have shared with me, is that we tend to fear our light way more than our dark, meaning we are more afraid that we are powerful beyond measure than we fear the fact that we could fail, even though that's daunting too. But I'm willing to bet you're actually more terrified to meet the version of yourself who does succeed and is seen for that. And that brings me to the last part I want to share with this today. And that is from Marianne Williamson, and it's from her book, I always say that. It's from A Return to Love, which is her evaluation of A Course in Miracles. And I'm going to read you her quote, and I'm going to leave you with this because I think this is a really important one to calibrate to and to remind yourself of if and when this happens to you, because I was not expecting to react this way at all. And here I am met with that part of myself, that version of myself that is totally freaked out. She says, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It is not just some of us. It is everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. So having the 4 questions and being reminded of what is really going on when these things get kicked up is going to help you remain calibrated or more calibrated, or offer perspective to help you get calibrated, to get into a coherent and aligned state that is not tethered to the need of others' approval, in being comfortable with shining your light and giving permission to those who want to do the same, and not worrying about those who are triggered, because the trigger is theirs and it is not yours. And this podcast episode is for me as much as it is for you. And I hope on some level it's been helpful. So until next time, stay wild. Thank you so much for tuning in to Wild Medicine. I am so grateful to have you here, and I hope you're feeling inspired and empowered. If you enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to subscribe and leave a 5-star rating. It helps us reach more incredible women just like you. And before you go, quick reminder, the information shared on this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose or treat any medical condition. Please consult with your healthcare provider for personalized advice and care. And if you're ready to take inspired action and dive deeper into your own health journey, please visit us at poppyclinic.com. Let's rewild and reset your health together.